poor manufacturing data out of China and the United States, as well as the ratings downgrade for 15 of the world's largest banks by Moody's Investor Service. Now, time now for our Market 101 segment. We are joined by economics professor Lucky Malveda. Good morning.
Good morning.
Not too good morning for the stock market, though. But let's get to our topic today. It's mutual funds. Tell us a little bit about mutual funds. What are they exactly?
Okay, mutual funds are actually collective investment schemes that can offer our investors relatively higher returns on their investment as compared to any traditional bank products available now, like time deposit and savings account. In the Philippines, mutual fund companies are closed-end companies which are registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And as of May 2012 of this year, I think there are already 48 mutual fund companies now existing in the Philippines.
Right. So how does it exactly work? How do you make money in these funds?
Okay, number one, before an investor is able to invest in a mutual fund, he has to determine first his risk profile. So it can be done by answering or conducting the client suitability test that can be conducted by a certified investment solicitor who happens also to be a registered personality in the Securities and Exchange Commission. And once the risk profile is established, then the certified investment solicitor will now explain the characteristics of the funds that suit the risk profile of the client, and then from there on he can already start investing.
Yeah, people who come onto this segment always talk about your risk profile. If you want to be aggressive or if you want to be conservative, you don't want to see your money going down or losing money in any of these funds. So let's say you are a conservative person. What kind of mutual fund would you look for?
Okay, normally if you are a conservative client or investor, in terms of mutual fund, you can actually invest to what we call the short-term short-term funds or money market funds, because in terms of tenor of the underlying investments of these funds, they are pretty much conservative. Some are actually just invested in time deposit and treasury bills, for that matter.
And if you are an aggressive person or you're a young person, you want to see your money grow right away, what kind of mutual fund would you look for?
So if you're an aggressive individual or investor, then you can actually try to invest in equities fund, or equities fund wherein the underlying investments are all equities, meaning to say funds are invested in the stocks of companies that are listed with the Philippine Stock Exchange. So, however, if you want to moderate your risk in investing in mutual fund, you can actually go for a balanced fund, meaning to say it can be a combination of investment in equities and at the same time in fixed income.
All right. Explain again briefly, how exactly does your money grow in a mutual fund? Is there interest made there?
Okay. Earnings in mutual fund, you don't actually earn because you are paid with an interest by the mutual fund company. That's number one. Investors in mutual fund earn through the NAV-PS, or we call that as the net asset value per share. The moment that you redeem your investment from a mutual fund and the NAV-PS is higher than the purchase price of your share in the fund, then that automatically gives you earnings on your mutual fund.
Right.
However, the NAV-PS, let me remind our televiewers that the NAV-PS, it changes every day. It's similar to the price of stocks.
Exactly.
So there has to be a risk disclosure, meaning to say the returns in mutual funds are actually not guaranteed. So sometimes market will turn sour, and so it will not favor you, and sometimes it will favor you.
It all, of course, depends on which mutual fund you pick, whether they be bonds or whether they be invested in securities or equities, and then that's when you know what to look at in the day-to-day news cycle. If you're invested in an aggressive mutual fund, which it does invest in equities, you have to watch the stock exchange.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
if you're in a more conservative one that puts your money into bonds, you have to watch the bond market, right? So one more thing I want to clarify is the tax issue. When you earn money in your mutual fund, is it taxable?
Okay, it's good that you raised the tax treatment of your investment in mutual funds. Actually, the tax treatment of your mutual fund is actually one of the benefits of investing in mutual fund, because upon redemption of your investment mutual funds, your earnings are all tax exempt as per Section 22 of the National Internal Revenue Code of the BIR.
Right, so that's the big thing there. Tax exempt. The money you earn from mutual funds are tax exempt. Okay, so what do you need to get into a mutual fund?
Okay, number one, you need investable fund. Okay, investable fund.
Is there a minimum requirement?
Some mutual fund companies offer mutual funds at a minimum of about 10,000 pesos. So you just need to spare 10,000 of your salary to get invested in mutual fund. And of course, you have to comply with the requirements set by the mutual fund companies.
So varying requirements from different banks and different financial institutions.
Yeah.
Okay, what happens if you outlive your mutual fund investment?
Okay, if for example you suddenly die, and you have investments in mutual fund, actually your investment in mutual fund becomes part of your estate. So that would be subject to an estate tax, because estate will be left to the surviving spouse and also to your legal heirs, who can be your children. But prior to the transfer, you have to pay estate tax.
It's important before you die, you have to liquidate all your mutual funds, so it remains not taxable.
However, still taxable. Still taxable because there's such a thing as donor's tax.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And you're passing it on, right? Okay, we're gonna have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Economics Professor Lucky Malveda. Again, a recap of the market right now. It's a down market. The PSEI is down close to 1% at 5,059.40. That's down 50 points from yesterday's close. The All Shares Index down 0.75% at 3355. All the sub-indices are in the red. We're seeing some over a 1% drop in properties holdings and financials. So a pretty bad start to the day. This was expected with that really sharp drop overnight in Wall Street. The Dow falling 250 points on negative or some poor factory output figures out of the United States and China. There was also some poor housing data out of the US. Lots of negative factors contributing to the market movement today. At the foreign exchange market, as of 9:39 this morning, the peso is at 42.528 against the US dollar. Volumes at $23 million so far. Pretty